Flight attendants and or pilots of Reddit, what are some things passengers do that get on your nerves? Poking or grabbing at me to get my attention. And it's usually on my butt as it's eye level with most people, haha. But for real, don't poke people, especially if I am speaking to another passenger. I can see you waving at me. I am not going to interrupt my assisting someone else because you want me to take your trash. Just give me a second and I'll come to you next. I promise can hear you if you say excuse me or miss or even wave a little in my direction. There's just no need to touch people or grab at them. Once I was so irritated at someone's incessant poking, I turned, looked them in the eye and poked them right back and said, "What do you need?" Leaving a ridiculous amount of garbage behind. Last week I had a grown butt couple spit huge globs of gum onto the floor and then step on it to try to rub it in. Like seriously? Why? And getting up to use the bathroom when we're already descending. OMG. I once had to fly from SLC to Denver when I was about 6 weeks pregnant. I had to pee literally every 10 minutes. I used the bathroom during the descent. It was that or pee my pants. Sorry, but frick leaving trash behind or spitting gum on the floor. That's just gross. Former flight attendant here. 15 years I've seen it all. And sorry for formatting. On mobile. 1. Walking throughout the aircraft barefoot, especially into the toilets. Those floors are not as clean as you think they are. 2. People who talk to us and treat us like scum. And yes, we'll provide better service to the ones who are nice, or think of them first when a whole row is free and they need to lie down and sleep during an 11-hour flight. 3. Parents that don't watch their kids during the flight. The aircraft isn't child-proof and there's a surprising amount of things they can injure themselves on. 4. Passengers who do aircraft yoga during the service. By all means, if lights are off and it's quiet, go ahead. But if there's a buzz of activity near the galley, then maybe wait a while. 5. Speaking of which, assuming the galley is a free-for-all, sometimes we don't get provided crew food for work and bring our own. If we're busy attending to a call bell and can't finish out snack or whatever, it's not for you to just grab and eat. At least ask first. 6. Complaining about how rough the flight was. I've had some cuss out the flight deck about their abilities because the aircraft hit wake turbulence. If you can magically see wake turbulence on a tiny monitor and think you can do a better job, then join a flight academy. Pay several $1,000s for the training and certification and do it yourself. I left aviation in August because of you know what, but that's just what I can recall from the top of my head. Check-in agent here. When the plane is delayed or there's a cancellation and passengers blame us. Honestly, there's nothing more we want than getting you on the plane to your holiday or back home, but if there's something physically wrong with the plane, we will not risk everyone's lives. Shouting, screaming and cursing at us won't change the fact that the plane is still broken. As a former FA, don't try to join the Mile High Club. Just stop. Don't have sex in the bathrooms, y'all. No, you aren't being very quiet, and yes, we will know, and depending on the airline policy, we'll also have to politely ask you to knock it off and keep it in your pants. Not to mention the obvious, airplane lavs are ridiculously tiny, to the point where once on one long haul we had to make an emergency landing because a large couple couldn't get out of the lav they had shoved themselves into once they were done. I'll add that this is the grossest place to possibly want to do the deed, as lavs never get deep cleaned, ever between same day legs. Ugh. And please don't jerk your partner off while you're both in your seats, with our complimentary blanket. I know what your hand motions mean and I will have to come over and shut it down, especially because in most cases there are families with kids sitting behind or near you. Military pilot. They always ignore instructions. Just do what I've politely asked of you. It's almost certainly for your own safety. My wife works at ticket desk for large airline. The stories I have, which honestly anyone who's worked any type of customer service knows what's up. My personal favorite. College athlete showed up late to flight, told couldn't board, yelling, screaming and cursing all employees, bringing her race up as reason they aren't letting her on. You know the works. The competition she missed the flight to was Olympic tryouts. How late was she, you ask? She showed up 2 hours after the flight left. I saw a full-blown freakout over something like that back last January. They honestly expect them to hold the plane or turn it around on the tarmac. I can't imagine a single moment in their mind. Pilot here. My worst experiences with customers is when the weather is bad and we have to either wait or make a no-go decision. My personal favorite is the guy who screamed at me while I was in the terminal getting coffee because his flight wasn't leaving on time. The whole Northeast was shut down for thunderstorms and low ceilings, but his iPhone said it was okay for us to go, so he had to tell me how bad I am at my job. As a passenger, don't say thanks for finally showing up. 1. It's incredibly rude. 2. You may only have one flight that day, but I probably had 4. Chances are I was delayed because of another flight or maintenance on some other plane. Added to that, we often only get 45 minutes to an hour between flights, which ends to requiring us to literally get off one right onto another. We have to grab food or maybe use a real bathroom in that time also. Don't ask if we were out late last night drinking. You may say it as a joke and think it's funny, but we have to take those comments seriously. There is a chance that comment will force the pilots to go take a breathalyzer and your flight may be delayed or cancelled. If you honestly smell booze, speak up. If not, it's not funny and keep your mouth shut. Not an annoyance, but I do love the look on people's faces when I tell them sorry, I don't know where the nearest X is. This is my first time at this airport. We don't pre-plan and memorize the layouts of the terminals at every airport in the world. Did you know that the closer you stand to the baggage claim carousel, the faster your bag arrives? It's science. Look it up. Warp speed for the ones that let their kids on the carousel. Had to laugh. There seems to be this line on the ground that only I can see around this carousel. My mom was a gate attendant in LAX for a few years. The mayor of LA was coming though, so they shut the gate down for security reasons. Jay Leno was there for some reason and was screaming at my mom because he was not getting the same treatment as the mayor. Jay Leno gets treated better than the mayor now. Gotta love that keycard status. I worked as a mechanic for a small airline. Most of the aircraft would carry 10-12 passengers and there are no flight attendants, so pilots had to keep an eye on the passengers. Sometime there would be a charter for sports teams and other rowdy groups. Often they would all crowd around at the back of the cabin and have drinking games, etc. This caused the aircraft to be tail heavy, which required the pilot to retrim the aircraft, and the plane just handles crappy. So the pilots would kick the rudder a few times, causing the aircraft to swerve side to side, rather violently if they really stepped on it. This would slam the passengers against the wall. That usually got the passengers to head back to their seats and strap in. If the passengers were particularly rowdy, suddenly pitching the aircraft down would lift the passengers off the floor, even as far as slamming them into the ceiling. I don't think something like this would happen these days, but things were a lot wilder flying in the north in those days. After a flight, I usually stand by the flight deck and say goodbye to the passengers as they exit. I get a lot of people that ask how old I am. That doesn't really bother me. I'll probably be sad when it stops, but please don't touch me as you are saying it. Seriously, strangers trying to pinch cheeks and pat my head. Lady, I'm not your grandchild, I'm your captain. Used to fly 50-seat jets for a regional. Flew with some captains who hated hearing "wow, this plane is really small" as passengers boarded. It would look pretty big parked in your driveway was my favorite response I heard. The plane was 100 feet long and weighed 50,000 pounds, so yeah, I bet it would. I can understand that comment though. People are used seeing huge airliners, so a 50-seat jets is really small compared to that. There's a YT channel with passenger freakouts in the airports. A lot of episodes, called Airplane Passengers Losing Their Crap. Pure comedy gold. I used to work check-in an international airport. Man, those idiots are the same all over the world. If I had $1 for every time I heard the excuse they weren't charged for their overweight bag when they flew in, I would be richer than Bezos. XEK cabin crew here. Honestly, the most annoying thing is when passengers don't follow safety protocols as we get ready for landing. Things such as not putting on seatbelts for whatever reason, not putting seats upright, taking your time in the toilet, standing up to grab things from overhead bin, among other things. There are a lot to do to prep a long-haul flight for landing, and once we start decent, there is a limited time to get everything done. Passengers who don't cooperate definitely are the most annoying. There were times where I got to my jump seat right before landing on the runway. I saw a reply above on running out of food choices. One time on a flight to New Delhi, in economy we ran out of vegetarian meals 2/3-way through because catering underestimated the demand. We then ran through the crew meals to gather all the vegetarian options and gave those out to passengers. While planes aren't restaurants, we definitely did our best to accommodate the passengers as best as we can. Stuff the overhead bins full without using under-seat storage. Closely related, carry-ons that are too large to fit under the seat and or too many carry-ons. Rollerboard, not rollerboards. That's a skateboard, lol, that are too heavy to lift into the overhead bin. Seriously people, you packed it. You gotta lift it and not expect some FA to wreck their body hefting it for ya. Any commentary jokingly tossed at the flight deck crew or cabin crew about their personal current state of alcohol intoxication or bomb jokes. Just don't. Really. Blaming us for ATC delays, misconnections, baggage issues, etc. We have no control over that, we just fly planes and keep you safe aboard. We understand we're the face of the company you see at the time, but really it's out of our hands. General advice: things that regularly seem to happen. Don't use the seat back pockets. The number of people that leave phones, books, iPads, laptops, wallets, etc. in those things and forget to pick them up is ridiculous. Put all important objects in a pocket, or part of a purse or backpack, in the same place every time. The number of freakouts and radio or phone calls to the gate to search for a phone we deal with because someone can't find a phone, passport, wallet, ticket or whatever is way too high. 90% of the time it's just drifted to the bottom of a bag or in a different pocket. Same place every time will save you some serious panic. Lastly, don't fly with medical problems that haven't been assessed by a physician and cleared for flight. It's awful to know that someone in the plane is having a problem and you're doing everything you can to get them to where better medical care can be had. But time, speed of the plane, and distance to the airport can only be influenced so much, and people do die on board. Usually due to things that we can't see coming like heart attacks, but every once in a while someone shows up after just having had a medical procedure and starts having a problem. One sticks with me that we had to rush to an airport, declaring a medical emergency because a passenger couldn't breathe well and got put on oxygen. After getting to the gate he declined to be seen by the EMTs we had standing by, stating that all he needed was the oxygen to get there, same as his previous flight. WTF. On our honeymoon, my wife and I got separated and were in different rows. The attendant explained to the passengers around us and asked if anyone would be willing to switch. The guy beside me wouldn't even look at her when she asked him. Once everyone was boarded, the attendant came back and said to us loud enough so everyone around could hear, "Your upgrade is ready." She walked us up to the first row in business class, gave us a bottle of champagne. We had a pretty nice breakfast and watched 13 Days in October. It was a pretty nice memory. Flying down to Mexico for the honeymoon sometime late August, wife and I had separate seats due to late check-in. Flight attendant comes on the speaker and asks if anyone is on their honeymoon and about half the plane raises their hand. Didn't bother asking anyone to move after that, lol. If you are booking a connecting flight and the connection times are 30 minutes or 2 hours, pick the 2-hour connection. I can't stand passengers who get all upset when they miss their connecting flight because they booked themselves a 30-minute connection. Your stressful travel day will be a little less stressful knowing you have a buffer. If you happen to land on time or even early, sit down at a restaurant, go for a walk, people watch, find your next flight's gate and watch a movie there, etc. Apparently pilots going to the bathroom is a secret, so there were people who were concerned about security, so I delete my comment. I just always assumed the cockpit seats flipped up and open to the bottom of the plane so you could go right there, and then air dry. Stop expecting free alcohol because you handed me a $3 bag of candy you bought in the airport. I'm a grown butt man. You didn't make my day by giving me a Hershey's Kiss. Slip me a 20 instead. I'll give you an open bar the rest of the flight. I was on an international flight and the guy behind me kept asking for a beer about every 20 minutes, which he got. Eventually the attendants told him there was a limit, which prompted him to ask what it was. 12. They told him 12. Act like it's a restaurant and you're the only costumer in it. If you don't get your choice of meal, just take whatever is available. Meals are loaded by a specific percentage. If your seat is at the row where the food cart will finish, then there's a chance you won't get your choice of meal. And if you need a special meal, request it ahead of time. I was pretty bummed one time on an international flight when the pasta ran out right before my seat. I'm vegetarian, so I went hungry. The pasta dishes tend to be better than the special vegetarian meals, too, but couldn't blame the flight attendants, of course. No, you do not fly more than I do. No, you cannot have a free upgrade because your friend's cousins know someone who works for the airline. That's not water on the bathroom floor. Wear your shoes. Believe it or not, there is a flush button on the toilet. You can do it yourself. When the seatbelt sign comes on, you do have to take your sleeping baby out of the bassinet. If we hit bad turbulence, your baby can and will hit the ceiling, then the floor, then the ceiling again. Your little darling won't be sleeping then. Yes, you do have to pay attention to the safety demonstration. I don't care that you're on a very important business call. If you block up an aisle in an emergency because you don't know where to go, you will probably kill us all. But no, I won't tell you what hotel we stay at. I appreciate anyone who actually looks me in the eye and says please and thank you more than I can describe. Regular flyer but not staff. Anything except being a polite and compliant passenger who understands that overhead space is limited. Which you wouldn't think would be such a low bar to clear. And yet here we are. Also not a flight attendant, but I've seen a few things that must bug them. Passenger painting her nails during the flight. Noxious fumes for everyone. Passengers who have the volume so high on their headphones that everyone in the surrounding 5 rows can hear it and won't lower the volume no matter how many times they're politely asked to do so. Back when you could bring aerosols on a plane, a woman on my flight started spraying hairspray on her hair. For the entire duration of the flight, the cabin smelled like Aquanet. Not my own experience, but I saw an interview in Japan where a flight attendant noticed that several trays from the seats and the inflatable vests were missing after passengers had disembarked. The next day while she was touring the area, known for fishing, she saw several passengers from the flight fishing on an embankment wearing the inflated life vests and using the trays for cutting fish. This was on Japanese TV, so I take it with a grain of salt, but even if it's totally fake, I laughed out loud. As a flight attendant, it's expecting leeway. We aren't given leeway by our bosses in the FAA about enforcing rules, so if you want to do something against the FAA federal regulations or company procedures, we can't give leeway either. The idea that it depends on the flight attendant if your child has to wear a mask, if they will upgrade you, if you can keep your bag laptop out, and anything that evokes the phrase "they let me do it on the last flight," etc. We can be fined a personal large monetary fine for allowing passengers to break rules or easily lose our jobs. Please just follow the rules that are set, that we have 0% decision on, or choose to travel a different method. Telling me it is your honeymoon so you can get bumped up to first class for free on this flight to the Caribbean. Look at the back of the plane. Everyone is on their honeymoon. Ex-aircraft dispatcher. We work at the ramp side, around the aircraft that is. Most passengers wouldn't know that we exist, but it is one of the important person who coordinates with every other department to turn around the aircraft on time. I used to work at a very small airport for a very small airline where there was only 3 flights a day for my airline. Due to a technical issue, a flight from origin could not come, and so obviously the departure flight is delayed for more than 12 hours. Even though it was a small airline, the passengers were provided with a stay at nearby hotel, but few of male Karens gave a tough time for the agents at gate. Everything was fine until the flight came back the next day morning. I was in the cockpit finishing up my job signing some docs with the pilot. I told him what was happening yesterday with those passengers. He was an ex-Air Force pilot and listened to their rampant behavior. As everyone boarded, around 6-7 of these male Karens came near the aircraft and refused to board. They wouldn't board the plane unless they are given a cash compensation. Every agent and manager tried and explained the scenario, but they were stubborn. They were delaying the flight further. A manager decided to send the flight without them, but they won't give us their baggage and tags. Due to security, a check-in bag cannot be on a flight without a passenger. They wouldn't give us their names or boarding passes or any details to find about their bags. The pilot came out of the cockpit and asked us to offload every baggage and to make the changes in documentation. Then he went on the PA to announce the passengers on board the plane that he apologizes for their baggage not coming on the flight and promised them that their baggage would be sent to their home. Airlines have such delivery systems. When those guys tried and entered the plane, the security stopped them and they were handed over to the cops. Note: do not show off your smartness when security and safety of an airline is involved. PS, they were blacklisted as well. They cannot travel in that particular airline for 5 years. My mother is a flight attendant, and one thing I always hear her complain about is how people try to stack all the little plastic cups and bowls that come with the meal. Those trays go into the cart as they came out, meaning nothing is stacked, and there is no overhead for it to enter unless she unstacks it, which as you can imagine is not fun. Yes, the intention is nice, but still. That's actually a really useful response. Most people in this situation are just trying to be helpful, but it actually hinders the air hostess. Not a flight attendant or pilot, but traveled frequently for work for several years. The single most baffling thing about passengers is how many people can't wrap their brains around packing their crap into the overhead bins. Why is it so hard? If your jacket or handbag can't fit, put it under your seat. Why are you standing there like a complete freaking waste of space trying to shove your crappy item into an already crammed bin? You're a moron. Stop flying. I was looking through the comments wondering if there's something odd I do that might bother some attendants. Nope. All the complaints are about people that don't know how to be decent human beings. You know the bar is low when the biggest complaints boil down to don't be a crappy person to us. When passengers get up as soon as the aircraft stops. You all could be sitting effortlessly until we make the bridge and disarm the door, but now. I hear trying to get from the front to the rear galley for your meal break as a flight attendant is an invitation to be flagged down by every 4th or 5th passenger. I've been told the best way to get there quickly and uneventfully is to put your meal and drink in a vomit bag and mince down the aisle holding it well out in front while wearing disposable gloves. No one wants to slow you down at that point. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.